So here are 5 more conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. Number 5, the CIA is secretly reading the private messages of over 100 governments and effectively has backdoor access into anything encryption or password protected. So back in 1970, the CIA and West German intelligence quietly bought a little Swiss company called Crypto AG. This company sold encryption machines that governments all over the world would buy to use to scramble their internal messages so that no one could ever know what they're talking about, except the US military, because the CIA secretly owned the company. They rigged every single one of these encryption machines, and 120 of the world's governments would buy these machines for a lot of money because in the zeitgeist of the Cold War, it really seemed like the only way to communicate without being spied on at all. They tuned into Iran during the hostage crisis, they fed the UK all of Argentina's war plans during the Falklands, and they caught Libya celebrating a bombing in Berlin. This went on for 50 years and we only found out because someone leaked it. Number 4, the US Navy sprayed live bacteria all over the city of San Francisco. Yeah, they just did that. So a Navy ship sat a couple miles offshore and spent about a week spraying huge clouds of bacteria into the fog. They were doing it because they ostensibly wanted to find out how a biological attack would spread through a major American city. And they did not tell a single resident they were doing it. Over 800,000 people inhaled this patriotic smog, and a few days later, 11 people showed up at a local hospital with a rare infection almost no one had ever seen before. In fact, one of them, a man named Edward Nevin, died, and his family had to grieve all over again when decades later they found out and sued, because the truth just came out in a Senate hearing in 1977. This excursion was called Operation Sea Spray, and the US Navy also admitted that it wasn't a one-off because they'd done it 239 other times, including releasing bacteria into the New York subway. Number 3, the cult dressed like a church of Scientology, planting thousands of its own members inside the US government. And so in the 1970s, the Church of Scientology decided it was going to get rid of every embarrassing government file about them and their weird founder. They got their people hired into real jobs across 136 different government agencies, including the IRS, the Justice Department, and the FBI, the big dogs. And of course, they even asked those members to just steal and shred documents from the inside, which was probably regular practice in all of those buildings. At its peak, they had up to 5,000 secret agents planted across the government, and it's in every definition of the word the biggest infiltration of the US government in history. And they were firmly in there until 1977, which it then did fall apart because that's when the FBI raided and found all the stolen documents. Number 2, the US government deliberately lacing all the alcohol with poison so that they could kill their own people. Dick move. So during Prohibition, the US government had a problem. People were just still drinking anyway. Most of the alcohol being drunk was industrial alcohol, the sort of stuff that bootleggers would steal and clean up and fix up in the toilet, nasty stuff that kind of tastes like poison. Their solution was to make the industrial alcohol as lethal as they possibly could. They ordered it laced with methanol, benzene, even mercury. It didn't matter to them because they knew people were still going to drink it. By 1926, the bodies were starting to stack up. In New York only, they had already logged 741 poison alcohol deaths. And you'd think they'd back off at that point. Ooh, we're doing a bad thing. They doubled down. And I mean literally, they doubled the amount of poison. And so just over a Christmas holiday in New York, dozens of people were dropping dead. New York's own chief medical examiner called it a national experiment in extermination. By the time Prohibition ended, that poison had killed an estimated 10,000 American citizens. And the government's official stance was quite literally, well, if they're drinking, then they're just committing suicide anyway. I'm not joking. Number 1, the US government is secretly stealing the bodies of dead babies. So quickly, before I talk about it, if you like weird, up, sad, scary shit like this, then you're great and I would like you to follow me, please, because it makes me happy. Thanks. So in the 1950s, America was setting off a whole bunch of nuclear bombs, just whenever, but they were secretly very panicked about nuclear fallout. And they were especially worried about a radioactive material called strontium-90. The problem with strontium-90 is on top of being very radioactive and deadly, the human body naturally pulls it into the bones as if it was calcium. And the types of bones that absorbed it fastest happened to belong to babies. So to measure how bad it was getting, the Atomic Energy Commission started collecting dead bodies of babies to test the bones. And they managed to collect over 1,500 dead babies from around the world. Did they at least inform the grieving parents? No way! Everyone admitted fallout was dangerous eventually. The actual conspiracy that seems really unnecessary is that in order to prove that radioactivity was dangerous, the government went out of their way to quietly harvest dead children. That's where it crossed the line. They did try to stop a nuclear bomb with the dead baby, but what do you think?